Right. And at that, I do believe that we may have Jan Morgan on the line here, so let's go ahead and bring her on. Hello, Jan.
Hello, how are you?
I thought I
was early. I'm sitting here looking at it. It says 8 p.m. we premiere, and so I'm thinking 8 p.m., but that must be a different time zone, and we are in different time zones.
Yeah, we're Eastern.
Yeah, and I'm Central, so that explains it. I was sitting here thinking I still had 20 minutes, and then you sent me the text. I was like, uh-oh.
Well, welcome to the show.
Great.
And this is Brenda, by the way, and we have a new co-host, Jude. Jude, you want to say hello to Jan?
Hi, Jan. Yes, I've seen you both this year and last year at the Constitution Day rally in Jimmy-Yoki, and always really motivated when you talk.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. I try to inspire. That's inspire and educate is my mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very intimidating.
And I felt that you were just in Washington, and what I had wanted you to come on and talk about, because this is something big that Americans need to be paying attention to, is the UN Arms Treaty. And I was wondering if you could kind of fill our listeners in a little bit on, this John Kerry business that just went down.
Well, the main thing I think that a lot of people are confused about regarding the UN Arms Treaty is the fact that they think, well, because our Senate's not going to ratify it, the Senate's already said they weren't going to ratify it, so we don't have to worry about it. But what people don't understand is there's words in that treaty that basically says it is unlimited, of unlimited duration. So just because this current Senate refuses to ratify it doesn't mean that it's not always going to be hanging out there. And any 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 50 years down the road, if we get a Senate that is Democrat-controlled, that is anti-gun, all it takes is one Senate one time, and we're in trouble.
Absolutely. Because even now, we only had, I think there was only 53 senators that actually voted against it.
Right. It's way too close for comfort for me. And the problem too that I'm not sure people really understand is that what this treaty calls for is basically global interference with our guns, and we will have to, gun owners, be involved in global registration. And I'm against registration in my own country, much less registration with some kind of United Nations organization. I don't want my name on any rogue country's list of people who own guns, and we all know that registration can lead to confiscation. So, that we have got to be vigilant and stay on top of this situation, and now more than ever, we have to make sure that the people we elect are pro-gun.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I have a question, too. What my husband had heard was that the company that was doing Obamacare, the website, was also a company that was working in Canada doing a gun registry.
That would surprise me.
Because,
why Obamacare is tied to... Doctors, part of Obamacare includes doctors asking patients, and there are a number of doctors in this country who already have it included. This information is in the questionnaire when you register as a patient with a doctor. It's, do you own guns, or do you have guns in your home? And gun owners need to understand that they're not required to answer that, and they should not answer that. And it's not a doctor's business whether or not you own guns, or whether you have guns in your home, or whether you have access to guns. It's none of his or her business. So, Obamacare is going to be, which is also tied to the IRS, and it's all going to be about enforcement and more gun control, and we don't need any of it.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And not to mention that they're going to be able to, the doctors have this new form now because all of your health information is going to be available to any law enforcement agency if they deem they want it.
Exactly. And, here's another thing that people need to think about. And I had already talked with a friend of mine that works for Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and she told me that the questionnaires are going to change. and they're going to be even more questions on your basic background checks. One of the things they're going to want to know is if you've ever been on an antidepressant. And there will come a time when doctors in this country will look at you, and if you're on antidepressants or you're wanting to be on an antidepressant, or if you've ever been on an antidepressant, then they will be noting that, and that can prevent you from getting a concealed carry permit. That's what's in the works. We've got a situation with the veterans now in this country who've ever actually gone over and served in combat. There's a push to prevent those folks from owning guns because they can. Our legislators can use the excuse, and doctors can use the excuse that they can have post-traumatic stress syndrome. And look at what happened to Chris Kyle. So, they're coming at us from every different direction, and there's so many attacks on our Second Amendment happening all at once that it's almost overwhelming to try to stay on top of it all because it's every day, every state. So many cities, and then we've got, of course, the United Nations. It's like nobody wants us to have guns. We are seriously in the battle of our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the thing, too. In Colorado, they had that
recall election
senator that they ended up recalling her because she didn't know anything about guns.
No, it wasn't just that she didn't know. She was specific. She was for gun control. She was a huge gun control advocate, and they soundly rejected that, and which is great because it shows that there's still hope out there. And with the veterans, and I'm a combat veteran as well, and that's, of course, that we are the next most likely terrorists, according to Janet Napolitano and the Department of Homeland Security, and we're the ones absolutely that they want to disarm first, and they're doing everything they can to destroy the military.
The folks in Colorado are turning things around. They did recall 2 of their legislators, and they are working on number 3. When I was a speaker at the Value Voters Summit in Washington, D.C. last weekend. Really enjoyed that. Met a lot of fine folks from all over this nation who are Second Amendment advocates as well as just strong constitutionalists and strong patriots. It was a great conference. But one of the people who was instrumental in spearheading that recall election was at this conference, and she told me, she said, I want you to come to Colorado and speak to the folks here. We need encouragement. We're excited that we've been able to recall 2 of our legislators. We're working on our 3rd, but, people here just need to hear the Second Amendment message more and more because, it's what happened to us can happen anywhere, and we're going to have to be vigilant. And it happened while we were busy living the American dream, and then we woke up one day and all of a sudden our gun rights were being attacked because we didn't pay attention to who we were electing to represent us. And that's usually what happens in this country. Unfortunately, people don't pay attention until it starts hitting home. And then you've got to go and back up and try to undo what's already been done. It's much, much harder. We already have over 20,000 gun control laws in the books in this country, and that's 20,000 too many. And it happened because too long we've all sat back and allowed it. We've got to stop it, and we need to start working on repealing the ones that are in place, not allowing our government to add more restrictions.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's been proven that the restrictions don't actually prevent these things like these mass shootings.
Well, no, they don't. No, because
they make everybody more vulnerable.
People affected by gun control laws are law-abiding citizens. The criminals will always have guns. The government will always have guns. The only people who are affected by gun control are law-abiding citizens, and that's been proven. And gun control doesn't work. The places where it's the most strict in this country are the places where they have the highest gun-related crime rates because there are basically defenseless citizens running around trying to live in those cities like Chicago and New York. So, the stats are on our side, and that's been proven. It's just hard to understand why the liberal population doesn't get that or refuses to get it. They seem to think that if we can just get rid of all the guns in this country from the law-abiding citizens, we'll live in this utopia where nobody will have guns.
Right. And I think sometimes they're already living in that utopia in their mind and instead of the reality of what's out there,
People come on my social media pages all the time and on my website, and every time there's a mass shooting, and I pull up my article that I wrote that's called My AR-15 is Not an Assault Weapon. It's not an assault rifle. And, of course, those people come on and say, well, why do you need an AR-15? Why do you need a high-capacity magazine? And I say, well, the last time I checked, it wasn't the Bill of Needs. It was the Bill of Rights. So, that's what we're dealing with, the mentality we're dealing with. And I don't know if they just, they truly don't get it, or they truly just have such a hatred for our Constitution and our Bill of Rights that they just want us to become a socialist nation.
I think it's less hatred and more ignorance. I mean, these people truly don't understand. They have no idea what tyranny is. They have no idea what it's like to live under a communist rule. And the
puzzling thing about that is, many times these people are the liberal elitists. They are the people who've gone to college, and they're in our higher institutions of education. They're out there, and they're supposed to be so educated, and yet they don't even know their history. World history has proven that, in the 20th century, 170 million people have been annihilated by their own government after being disarmed. And that proves my point that gun control is about control. It always has been, and they can't gain control if you're an armed citizenry, and an armed citizenry is a free citizenry. That's why we have survived in this country for so long. That's why Japan. You look at other nations and they look at us and they know that Americans, 90 million gun owners, have over 300 million guns in this country. We are a fourth of Americans.
I heard on the news today that one of our House Representatives, Renee Elmers, had a break-in at her house and somebody stole her AR-15.
Oh, really?
Yeah, here's good news in all of this, ladies. I kind of happened upon this article. It seems that Interpol Secretary General Robert Noble says the world may need to consider arming citizens as a way to deter mass shootings, such as the terrorist attack that happened in Kenya. That may be a good thing for conservatives here in the United States, because they can always say, well, Interpol says.
Yeah. Well, I think they do that. They do that in Finland or something, where they're required to have a gun, each household.
I want to put something out there before we run out of time, because I know I came into the show late because I thought we were starting at 8 my time, not 8 your time.
Okay.
I want to throw this out there for people to think about, because I think there are a lot of gun owners who are not even where I am regarding the Second Amendment, and I really would like to pull gun owners further right than they are, because I'm even further right than the NRA. I don't believe in that context. I don't believe in any restrictions on guns in this country, and here's why. Because I believe in the Second Amendment, and it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say the right of the people that the government deems mentally fit. It doesn't say the right of the people that state police say have demonstrated exemplary marksmanship skills. It doesn't say the right of the people who've never made a mistake in their life and ended up in jail for a while. It says the right of the people. And I firmly believe that everybody in this country has a right to defend life. And unless you're in prison, then you don't have a right when you're in prison. But once you're out, you have a right to redeem yourself. You have a chance. You've paid your dues. You're back out on the streets. You're back trying to survive. And you shouldn't have to walk around defenseless for the rest of your life because of a mistake you made. And you shouldn't have to walk around defenseless because you have some mental issues. I'm sorry, but I don't want our government in the business of deciding who in this country is and is not mentally competent enough to own a gun, because you know, Barbara, as well as I do, that you get the wrong people in control, then they may decide that people who believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ might not be mentally stable. So the next thing you know, Christians won't be able to own guns. And I know that I'm probably sounding a little radical here, but honestly, I just want to get back to the Constitution and Bill of Rights. I think that's where we need to get to, and we've allowed way too much to come down on the American people, and we should not have the restrictions that we have.
Right, and that shouldn't be the radical viewpoint. That should be the mainstream. And I think it's a little more mainstream than what we're getting from the media and from what's going on in Washington. Because if you look at maps across the United States, there's more red than there is blue It's just the blue is concentrated.
Right.
In these bigger cities.
Well, maybe we need to move some of our red into those blue and try to change that concentration a bit.
I'm thinking that we're going to have to get on the ground in there and start
why
walking.
Don't you come to a speech in California? Why don't you come teach a gun class in California? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine even going to that state.
They have a lot of red in California if you look, but there's just not enough of them to outvote the blue.
But you know what? Those people that are there are complaining constantly to me about their gun rights and about what's happening in their state. And the reason a lot of them are still there is because they can't even sell their homes and get out. That's another problem.
Yeah. I was just on a little rant before you called in, Jan. I am so sick and tired that nobody up in that government, our elected officials, that don't follow the Constitution. And the more the days and the hours in a day go by, it pisses me off because nobody's saying that. Obamacare, the power of the federal government has nothing to do with making me buy something or them taking something away from me. That's why we have the Constitution. And nobody seems to care except the American people that we don't get much attention because we're just a bunch of wacko birds.
Well, actually, this didn't start with Obama, as you very well know. Social Security. Social Security was a violation of our constitutional rights.
Right.
Social Security was never meant to be mandatory. It was never supposed to be mandatory. Now they issue you a Social Security number at birth, whether you want it or not. Yeah. And we're not supposed to have it. We're supposed to participate in that if we want to. But what do you think would happen if I go down to the Social Security office today and say, I want everything that I put into Social Security, I want it all now because I'm not going to participate in that anymore.
Right. Try that one. See where the IRS ends up. On your doorstep. So.
I don't trust my government anymore, so I just want my Social Security back before you all bankrupt it. I want my money back, and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Actually, taxes are not supposed to be mandatory either. They're and Harry Reid got popped saying it, and he was like, yeah, but you have to pay your taxes, but they're voluntary, and not mandatory.
Well, look, ladies, the bottom line is this: we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to restore our constitutional republic overnight. It's going to take time. We've been decades in the making to get to where we are now, and it's going to take decades to get back. But we're going to have to get everybody awake, and we're going to have to get everyone educated so that the enemies within cannot win our elections. We're going to have to start sending people to Washington, D.C. that understand that you're going to abide by the Constitution, and you're not even going to vote on anything. Nothing even comes to the floor unless it has its constitutional muster. Therefore, we're not going to have any issues like Obamacare out there. And, get back to educating our own kids or defying our public school education system that has been brainwashing our kids for decades that we've allowed because we haven't been paying attention to what they're teaching our kids.
We're going
to have to start back at ground one and do the same thing that the left has done for decades. We need to look at what they've done and how they have brainwashed our kids and taken this country away from the good citizens of this country, the good conservative citizens, constitutionalists of this country, and we're going to have to take it back that way.
Yeah. I was actually, I read a little earlier the article that you posted yesterday about the dues that they pay to the really?
Yes, the whole system is so corrupt. Our system is it is out of control. It's corrupt, and we need to clean house. Being a representative, being in the Congress, the United States Congress, being in the House and the Senate should not become a career for anyone. It was never meant to be that way. We need to send people in. They need to be real people, average people, who know what it's like to live from one paycheck to the next, who know what it's like to run a small business, who know what it's like to survive in this country, in the real world, instead of people who've been in Washington, D.C. so long drawing, serious checks from off the taxpayers' backs who don't have a clue what it's really like to live out here in the real world and survive and try to run a business that's overregulated by the EPA, by the government. But, these small businesses are just choked to death. And what's scary is, as I'm doing speeches around the country at Second Amendment rallies, and I'm doing a lot of traveling by air, but I've also done a lot of traveling by car. And my husband and I were driving. We drove through about 8 states one day, going from one point to another. And I looked at him and I said, it's like a ghost town. There are so many manufacturing companies shut down now. We're not manufacturing in this country anymore. What happened to that? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The United States government has overregulated and taxed businesses to death, where it's either cheaper to run your business from China or somewhere else or just go out of business.
Right.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of
this country is built on small businesses. I mean,
exactly.
70% of the jobs are the small businesses, and it's really scary. And you're absolutely right about the out of touch, and this is why. And they like their money and they like their power, and this is why we've seen such a backlash against Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and the Tea Party, what they call the Tea Party, in Washington, because they're threatening the very honey pot that these people have been drawing on for years.
And then I heard yesterday that they're probably going to have to delay Obamacare and the mandate because the website's not working, and that's what we all want. That's what they wanted to begin with in the House.
Well, because people aren't signing up. Who wants to sign up for that? The only people who are signing up for it are people who need it desperately, and if the only people who are signing up are the ones who need it but don't have the money to pay for it, where's the money coming from to pay for it?
Yeah, they're going on to find out what their subsidies are going to be.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Well, and that's part of why the website is having such problems. A friend of mine was telling me that the software, part of what the software does is to hide what subsidy you're going to get because they don't want you to see that, and so that's a big part of why it doesn't work, because they don't want you to see, like, they give the subsidy and then they subtract it based on getting more and more in depth on the questionnaire.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
And because it's going to be way too expensive. And so that's why, instead of, if it was really a good product, you put it right out there out front. Here's what you'll pay, do your shopping, and then give your information. But no, they want to get all your information so that then if you don't sign up, they're going to come and take your money at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, Jude, in that they designed it that way.
Yeah, it's designed to fail so they can say we really just need a single-payer system. We tried this. And rather than going to a true free market system, which we currently don't have and we haven't had for a long, long time, which is the direction that we should go, to really open the markets and go to a competitive system and take insurance down a bunch of notches and make them all but irrelevant. That's the direction that we should go, but what they're going to try and persuade, and they're going to be successful, especially the low information voters, is to say, that it's the system that doesn't work. We need a single payer system, and everybody has to be on it, and then we're all screwed.
And there again, it's unconstitutional for all that mess.
Right, and that's why we have to support people who understand the Constitution, like. And you know exactly who they're afraid of. Whoever they scream the most about, that's the one we need to be backing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're on the right and they're not attacking you viciously, you're doing it wrong.
Right. I also heard that the Obama administration is going to sue those who tried to stop or defund Obamacare to cause the shutdown. Jan,
say that again? They're going to sue the people.
I don't think that Ted Cruz is worried about what the Obama administration tries to do to him. I don't think
no, he went back to Texas, and he was happy to be back in America.
People sent him to do. Yeah, look, you know,
all support,
ladies, here it is.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Everywhere I go, and I talk about what's happening in our country, most of the people at these rallies and at these conferences, we already know what's wrong. We already know all the problems that our country has. But what people don't know, and what I hear over and over is, okay, what can I do, Dan? What can I do as an individual? You know, I'm not in Congress. I'm not in the Senate. What can I do to make a difference? How can I help reverse this sinking ship? And here's what I tell them. You can make a difference. Every single person as an individual can make a difference. And it starts right there in your own hometown, in your city, and even in your home. If you have children or if you have grandchildren, it is essential that you teach them the value of the Constitution and more importantly, the Second Amendment, and why of all the things covered in the Bill of Rights, that Second Amendment is essential, because without it, we have no way to defend the others. And you need to get your kids involved in shooting sports at an early age, or get them involved in shooting guns at an early age. Take them to the gun range. I worked with a little girl the other day that's 7 years old. Her daddy brought her in with a little .22 pink rifle that he brought at Walmart, bought her some pink earmuffs and some little pink glasses, and she learned how to shoot, and she was having a blast. But we need to make our children, don't wait until they're adults going off to college to say, oh, hold on just a second. Here, honey, here's your .38 special in case somebody tries to attack you. I'll take you out and let you shoot a couple of rounds so you can make sure you can shoot it. No, we need to get our kids involved with guns early, because they're getting brainwashed in our schools about the dangers of guns.
And they need to learn how to
respect
the
Constitution. Yes, they need to. Well, to me, when I say teach your kids about guns, teaching gun safety I shouldn't have to say that. That's essential. That's all adults as well. There are so many adults out there that are not safe gun handlers. It's frightening to me. But at the same time, you don't have to take classes to own a gun in this country. The Second Amendment is basically a mandate to the government that the people of this country are born with the right to defend life. And the government, you shall not infringe on that right. That's what the Second Amendment is saying. So, yes, people in this country have a right to own guns. If you're a responsible citizen, in my opinion, it's your responsibility. You shouldn't be mandated to, but it's your responsibility to go get the training you need so you are an effective and safe gun handler. And it's your responsibility if you're in a mall and some idiot comes in and starts shooting up the place. How much have you practiced? How confident are you that from your vantage point, if you pull that .40 caliber Glock subcompact and you aim at that person that's killing people, are you going to be able to hit him, or are you going to hit an innocent bystander? You need to practice. You need to spend quality time at the range. So, I wish that all citizens who own guns would take the time to make sure that they're confident in their marksmanship abilities and their safe gun handling. But we need to work on our kids. We need to talk to our neighbors, our friends. We need to stop this business of, when you're in company and in social environments, you don't talk politics, religion. Well, yes, you do. You have to. We've been silent too much. Jefferson said all that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to remain silent, and we have been silent because we didn't want to offend. We need to throw political correctness out the window, stop worrying about that, stop worrying about offending people. We need to take our cities back, and then we need to take our government offices back on the state level, because the state is where this battle is really going to be fought, ladies. We've got states that there are some states in the South who are now bowing up against the federal government. Look at Jan Brewer in the state of Arizona. We've got a guy running for governor in Arkansas, Curtis Coleman, who's already organized a coalition of 10 governors in the South who have said, we will stand up to the federal government. We will be the barrier between the federal government and our citizens, and we will represent the citizens of our state to the federal government as sovereign states. And we will not let the federal government tell our citizens whether or not they can own and can't own guns. Many of these states have already passed the Firearm Freedom Act, which basically tells the federal government, if you come into our state and try to enforce your federal gun control laws, your federal agents will be arrested.
Yeah, I know. I love
it. Isn't that awesome?
Yes. So we've got states beginning to bow up. And we have to make, so these are things, and what can you do as an individual? You can find these people who are running for office in your local, in your city, and in your state government. Start there. Get behind them, support them. If you can't do it financially, then help distribute bumper stickers. Go work their phone bank for a day or for a few hours a week. Anything. We can all do something.
Absolutely. Right. And at that, I want to mention that there is a governor's race coming up in Virginia where Mayor Bloomberg has just given millions of dollars to the Democratic candidate, Nanny Bloomberg with his anti-gun grab going on in New York. And so PatriotVoices.com is sending people, they're trying to get people together to go to Virginia and knock doors and just hold signs or whatever to try to for Ken Cuccinelli, who is the Republican candidate there. So if you're listening, and you can, go to PatriotVoices.com. They'll hook you up, get you to Virginia, get you in with a group trying to help out there on the ground.
Right. Virginia's got a lot of course, there are a lot of gun owners there, and people who are adamantly, fiercely protective of the Second Amendment. I just can't believe that no matter how much Bloomberg, how much millions of dollars he puts into that opponent's pocket for that campaign, I can't believe that the folks of Virginia would elect him over the governor they have. But, you never know. You've got to be sure that the integrity of that election is maintained. Sometimes who's counting the votes.
Right, and absolutely. And there is a presence by the Libertarian Party, which is really hurting the Republican candidate. So it's going to be a battle. But it's one that we can, if you can get involved in. Like I said, just go to PatriotVoices.com, and they will hook you up. So I'm actually heading there myself, November 1st to the 3rd. So that's, and Jan, I hear you're going to be in Florida. Is that going to be your next class?
Yes, my next speaking engagement is at the Women Impacting the Nation conference. I'm going to be speaking at that conference. It's a 2-day conference, November 15th and 16th. I'll be speaking at that conference on Saturday morning, the 16th. I'm doing a gun class Saturday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. That's just sort of a real short version of a class for women who are attending that conference. And then on the following, that Sunday on the 17th, I am actually teaching an all-day NRA basic pistol class, which will get attendees their NRA basic pistol certification as well as their Florida concealed carry permit. And you do not have to be a resident of Florida to have a concealed carry permit from that state. And the cool thing is you get a Florida concealed carry permit. It's good in over 30 states. It's a great deal. So I'm hoping to train a lot of women that weekend. My first goal in my first speech is to talk them into the concept of gun ownership, and because there are a lot of women there who haven't even given much thought to owning a gun, much less getting a concealed carry permit. So my first speech is going to be to convince them, make them understand that as women in this country, you have a role as a defender for your family, as your own self-defense, for your own safety, that of your kids, and that you have a role. As a woman impacting the nation and impacting the lives of your family, you have a role in defending life and liberty, and that a major part of your wardrobe every day is or should be, which gun am I going to carry today? What outfit can I wear with this gun? Because this is the one I just feel like I'm wanting to carry today. So just change it with your purse. And there are a lot of women. I met a number of women in Washington, D.C. Some of the women in D.C. last weekend are going to be at the conference in Florida, and they were telling me, well, I have a gun. My husband brought me a gun a few years ago. I said, well, what caliber is it? I don't know. It's little. And I said, have you ever shot it? No. Do you know how to load it and unload it? No. There's a lot of that. Okay. I really want to empower women to take ownership and bond with their gun and understand the importance of being a responsible gun owner. So I'm working on convincing the ladies of this nation through my program, Armed American Woman.
Do you have a favorite? This is Jude again, and do you have a favorite holster or supplier for accessories?
Ooh, that's a dangerous thing to ask me because there are some sponsors on my site. I have to be real careful. I will tell you this, that Sneaky Pete has a new holster. They aren't even a sponsor on my page yet, but I do like the holsters that they've come out with, because it doesn't even look like a holster. It looks like something you would hold an iPod in or an iPad, or it's the coolest thing you want.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I tell women all the time, you know, I carry 2 guns on me at all times. 2, not 1. I usually have a Glock 40 subcompact Model 27 in my purse or on my hip, and I usually have a .380 on my ankle, and a tactical knife, at least 1 in my purse too. And they're not you know, with magazines separate. They're loaded, they're ready to go, and they're chambered. So that's the way I carry. But holsters are a big problem for women, because you know, when you work on your figure, you don't want big bulgy. You don't want to wear big bulky clothes.
Exactly.
You, and you don't want to wear anything fitted, and you got this big bulge coming off the side of your hip. So it's been quite frustrating for women to try to have a way to carry. A lot of women do carry in their purses. That's nice, and I do carry in my purse, but just in case somebody grabs my purse. Which one of the things I teach in my classes, in addition to just gun knowledge, is self-defense. We have some techniques that we share with women. If somebody grabs your purse, how to keep taking it away from you, and taking your guns in your purse. You can't let somebody get your purse. So we've got a concept on how to use a purse for a weapon. So you can get yours out. So we teach some hand-to-hand combats and things for women to use that give them just a couple of seconds. You know, you can't physically take on, unless you're a ninja, you can't take on a man that's twice your size. But you can use his own body weight as leverage, and you can take him on for a couple of seconds, long enough. There are some things that you can do that are gonna cause him intense pain. That'll give you a couple of seconds advantage to grab that gun. So and if we teach women how to keep somebody from taking a gun away from you, if they weren't smart enough to start pulling the trigger when they grab it, before they grab it, and we've got a technique that we share with women on that too. But you know, I tell women too that fanny packs are great holsters. I know that you look like a nerd. Women think, oh my gosh, those are, you know, you look like a tourist nerd. But a fanny pack is almost a way to open carry, because there you've got that, you know, fanny pack right there hanging on the front of your outfit. Who would ever think that that's a holster? But I carried a 1911. I carried a Kimber 1911 in mine before, and nobody ever had any idea that right there in that little front fanny pack was a Kimber 1911 45. So, you know, that's a wonderful, you know, and I don't care what people think about the way I look in that respect. If I want to carry a gun, I don't want to carry a purse hanging off my shoulder. I like having that fanny pack right there. And, so, anyway, and I'm working on developing a holster that women will like. That's one of the things we want to do with Armed American Women, is develop a holster specifically for women. I don't like the bra holsters. I know a few women that use them, but I personally don't like those.
Yeah, it seems a little weird to. Yeah. It's almost just as cumbersome as going into your bag as it is to grab under your shirt.
Right. You know, my goal, ladies, is that we will restore this country to the extent that one day all states will be like the state of Arizona, where everybody's walking around with guns on their hips, and openly so. And we don't have to, nobody thinks of it. It's just, this is the way we live, and nobody has to. Constitutional carry would be wonderful in every single state. That's what I would like for us to get back to.
Absolutely, and then we could have those real decorative belts and just have our little
we could,
and it wouldn't be an issue.
We could get bling on our holsters and everything. I mean, then we could spend the night. We could get them to match our outfits.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. Well, we want to thank you, Jan, for calling in and spending time with us and being informative for our guests. Because,
absolutely, I enjoyed it, and I'm so sorry that I was about 20 minutes or 30 minutes late. But I once again, we had a time zone difference there, and I was thinking 8 p.m. my time, but which is actually 7 p.m. my time, 8 your time. So sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay, because we get sometimes confused ourselves. So it's like, oh, what time is it? So, but yeah, we're just glad that you did make it, and thank you for joining us and sharing your knowledge and inspiring us all.
You bet.
So,
and congratulations on your new show, and good luck with it. Anytime you need a guest, just give me a call, okay?
All right. Thanks, Jan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, that was Jan Morgan, my friends and listeners, and it's always good to have her stop by and fill us in on what's happening on, as you heard, True